Part 3. I came even closer to throwing up. I had seen some nasty shit before my friends got me to look up shit like Two Girls, One Cup and Lemon Party and Goatsy and even Three Guys, One Hammer. But this was more sickening than anything they got me to watch. The music was building up. I was actually looking forward to seeing the two of them die. I hated Twilight Sparkle now. I wanted that whore to die. Okay, that was offensive in that story to me as a Twilight fan. The scene changed to what looked like a hunting scope. It was looking through the window and was clearly aiming for Spike. When the shooter got a lock on Spike, the shooter pulled the trigger. The shooter took off the scope and the camera changed to reveal it was Fluttershy. She grinned that evil grin of hers. One down, one to go. The scene went back to Twilight's bed. Spike's head had taken the shot and blood and brain matter splattered all over the wall and Twilight herself. She stood in shock and just stared in horror as she watched Spike bleed. Who did this? Twilight screamed in horror. Fluttershy walked in the front door of Twilight's house. Fluttershy! Someone just killed Spike! Get some help! Twilight shouted at her. Fluttershy ignored her. She walked toward the bed. She pulled out a knife. Fluttershy? What are you doing? Twilight asked as she backed toward the wall. At the climax of the music, Fluttershy just started stabbing the daylights out of Twilight Sparkle. Twilight screamed bloody murder. She hacked everywhere until Twilight's lungs filled with blood. She stopped breathing and her heart stopped. She was dead, but Fluttershy just kept stabbing. I counted up to 250 times before she stopped stabbing. I have a very good sense of numbers and was able to remember each stab, even when I was paying attention to the blood and gore. Fluttershy calmed herself down. She took the knife and started carving at Twilight Sparkle's thigh. But by the time she finished carving, her thigh read, "Pedo whore." I then saw Fluttershy do something I had never seen her do before. She stuck her hoof in the blood puddle and smeared a smiley face upon the wall of Twilight's bed. I recognized the picture. It was an exact match to the insignia of Red John from The Mentalist. I wanted to see Twilight dead, but not like that. I came to the conclusion that it was not Lauren Faust who made this. I figured out that it was just some deranged psychopath who had learned how to animate just like Faust. I was now worried for her. Was he stalking her? Would we lose an animation genius? The screen faded out to black. I knew this was not a real episode. It had already run for 35 minutes. When it faded back, the scene was that of the Crystal Empire. What could be done now to make this episode even scarier? The camera changed to the theater. Princess Cadance and Prince Shining Armor were on top of the balcony. They were chatting and viewing the performance of Handel's Messiah. They seemed to really enjoy it. The camera changed viewing to the back of the stage behind the curtain where Fluttershy stood, waiting for the right chance to strike. She pulled out a remote with an evil grin on her face. She pushed a button and a loud explosion was heard. The ponies in the theater panicked. Everyone screamed bloody murder. It was shown that the balcony Cadance and Shining Armor was viewing the performance from had blown up, and that the two rulers were now splattered to the wall, dead. Fluttershy jumped out from behind the curtain and just started shooting like before at the schoolhouse. She shot at everyone, killing everyone in sight. She would not kill everyone, though, like at the schoolhouse. A group of police officers ran from behind her and tackled her. They successfully subdued her and arrested her for numerous counts of murder. She put up very little fight as they carried her away, but rather she gave an extremely evil-looking grin like she did not care. The grin was no ordinary grin, but very similar to that of the legendary Smile Dog. Geez, you had to put a reference in one of those old creepypasta stories about the creepy smile of a husky dog. Photo. She had over 250 kills in her whole rampage, over 230 of them being from the theater. The screen faded out to black once more. I was glad this maniac was finally caught, but I couldn't help but feel sorrow for those who had lost their families and lives in her rampage. The black screen lasted for about a minute. I hoped it was finally over. It wasn't. The screen faded back to what looked like a courtroom. Months had passed since the rampage, and Fluttershy had pleaded guilty for murder. She was now in court for sentencing and for final comments before she was to go to prison for life. The first pony to go up on the podium was Princess Luna. I was glad to see one of Equestria's rulers, since they are my favorite ponies. Fluttershy, why? Luna asked, on the stand. I don't know why you would do something like this. It seems so out of character for you. I had no idea what would motivate you to do something like this. She started to cry. I bet you were abused by your family, perhaps molested by your father. You had a horrible childhood. The ones you used to call friends turned on you and started letting their flawed natures control themselves. I was appalled when I learned what Twilight Sparkle had done to Spike these past few years, taking advantage of a child. I was astonished that Apple Bloom never managed to report the abuse she faced in the hands of her family. But why did you kill the rest of them? Why did you murder the victims of these monsters with them? Why? Her sobbing started to get out of control. She gained her composure after a while. Perhaps a lifetime in prison will help you get rid of that hate in your heart. Whoa! Is Luna acknowledging the idea that Fluttershy was abused as a filly? I thought that was just an urban legend, but now I wasn't so sure. Then again, this clearly was not authentic. Princess Luna got off the stand. Now it was Fluttershy's turn to speak her last lines. This would turn out to be the most disturbing portion of the already demonic episode. Fluttershy went up on the stand. She was in her prison outfit, ready to speak. The first thing she did was remove her prison jacket. What she wore underneath disturbed me beyond all belief. She wore herself a white t-shirt and it bore the word killer written sloppily with black marker. This was getting very familiar to me, but what she said for her last statement really shocked me. This is a message to the families of my victims. The hoof that pulls the trigger that killed your families now clops to their memory. Fuck all of you, she said in another different voice, resembling that of another male teenager. I recognized that quote from something on the news. It was the sentence for T.J. Lane, the perpetrator of the Chardon High School shooting. He wore the same exact t-shirt I saw Fluttershy wear, and he said almost the exact same thing. Except Fluttershy's speech was ponified. However, it sounded like the voice was T.J. Lane's himself. How could he have recorded this in a line for a kids' show? It couldn't get any worse, I thought. That was until Fluttershy pulled out a handgun from her pocket. The ponies of the courtroom fled the scene for fear of their lives except for the police. They ran for her, but before they could reach her, she put the barrel in her mouth and pulled the trigger. The bullet exited out of the top of her head and she died immediately. Blood and brain matter poured from her mouth in a manner similar to that of the infamous Bud Dwyer suicide. Random bursts of static overtook the screen as she bled out. After flickering on and off for a while, the screen was overtook with extremely loud static. It stopped suddenly, and I saw the most disturbing image in my lifetime. It was a picture of Fluttershy bleeding out, but her eyes were missing, and her sockets were left to bleed. That image literally made me wet myself. I kept watching, not thinking it would get any worse. However, I was wrong. The Song of Healing started playing backwards, similar to the story of Ben drowned. The clip changed to another disturbing video clip. It was zoomed in automatically. All I saw was what looked like Fluttershy performing fellatio on someone. As the video zoomed out automatically, I saw that someone she was pleasuring was no one else but the infamous T.J. Lane, the hardened shooter. He was clearly enjoying it. It zoomed out even more, and I could see that someone was penetrating Fluttershy at the other end. I was so sick by this. I just wanted it to be over. It zoomed out to show the face of who was penetrating Fluttershy. It was none other than the evil Adam Lanza, the Sandy Hook murderer. Fluttershy was enjoying both ends of hers being fooled with, but I was sick to my stomach. After 10 minutes of watching this horrible sex act, the two mass murderers came, and their bodily fluids covered the screen until it was all white. The screen then faded to black, and it stayed there for 30 seconds. Was this some sick joke? Who made this? I wanted to find out who made this video and slit their throat. I thought the video was over, but I was dead wrong. Once again, the screen suddenly flashed in multiple colors. It was the most evil image I had seen. It was Adam Lanza once more, only he had no eyes, but only bleeding sockets and blood running down his mouth. The image flashed over and over again in different colors while at the same time loud blood-curdling screams filled the room. At this point, it didn't even sound like it was coming from my computer, but rather surrounding me all around the room. I covered my ears and fell over. From there on, everything went black. The aftermath. I woke up 3 hours later in the emergency room at Clearfield Hospital. My parents were standing by my bedside. "What happened?" I asked my mother rather groggily. "I came home and I saw you passed out on your bedroom floor. I was worried I would lose you," she sobbed. "The doctor said you had a grand mal seizure," my father said. "Does this mean I'm an epileptic?" I asked. "The doctors told us that you had a stress seizure, apparently triggered by some sort of psychological trauma," my father said. "They are called psiogenic non-epileptic seizures, or PNES. "Did something happen to you while you were home alone?" my mother asked. "What was on my computer screen when you found me?" I asked, remembering the DVD. "When I called the ambulance, I saw a message on the computer screen. I was too worried about you, but I took a look anyway. It said something to the effect of, 'This isn't over,'" my mother replied. "What's this about?" "Something happened to my computer," I said. "I found a movie at the Goodwill and played it on my laptop. It played very disturbing imagery that wasn't supposed to be there. I think I bought a pirated film." My parents embraced me, glad that I was safe. The doctors recommended that I be kept home from school the next day. This would end up saving my life. My parents got a call the next day from high school. There had been a school shooting that left 15 students dead, including the shooter, who killed herself. I knew this girl. She was in my grade. She was a beautiful blonde and had these beautiful blue eyes. She never talked with anyone, just blended in most of the time. I never knew she had it in her to kill people. The news reporter stated that she had been raped by a couple of male students about a year ago and finally decided to take her revenge on the guys.